Welcome to the September edition of the Adaptive Cards Developer Community Call. If this is your first call, thank you for joining us. If you're a repeat member, thank you especially for coming to these. About these community calls, we meet on the second Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. So this, obviously is the September 12th call. The next call will be on October 10th. And they're pretty casual. It's just me. I made these slides this morning. They're not my prettiest slides, but they're pretty. We like to just be very authentic, I guess I would say. That meet the team. I guess I'll stick it into that. So I'm Matt Heidinger. You can find me on Twitter, and I'll have my email throughout. And David Clow is one of our key contributors to the project as well. So meet us. We just kind of like to have an open, kind of frank discussion with everybody. And today I've got a couple things. So we have a new partner announcement that I'm pretty excited about. Just happened, I think, a couple weeks ago that I got wind of it. So we're going to talk about a new partner. We're going to talk about the Ignite conference, and if anyone is going, and have some opportunities that I hopefully get to meet with you if you're there. Some updates around the feature portal, which is your mechanism for driving this product, for contributing feedback, telling us what to build. And the biggest thing we'll really get into today is the Adaptive Cards website is getting refreshed. And I would love to share it, the preview, with this audience and see if you guys have some first impressions about it. If you want to take it for a spin, it will be public. And just kind of talk about some improvements across the board. So the website does a whole handful of functions, from interactive documentation to the designer to just helping people understand what the product is. So we've really tried to improve it measurably for all those people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Without getting any further ado, so Cisco WebEx Teams is our first major non-Microsoft partner to release support for adaptive cards. So this is pretty cool. I know Cisco WebEx was one of the first conference calling apps I used in my career, much before joining Microsoft. And it's a conference calling software. They recently expanded to a new product called WebEx Teams. Which is not unlike the collaboration software out there, Microsoft Teams, Slack, etc. They have channels and a chat platform, a bot platform, and their bot platform is powered by adaptive cards almost exclusively. And it's pretty cool to see. It was a very organic thing. I've only talked to them really to offer some support. And help them. They integrated the designer into their workflow. This is a screenshot of their product running on a Mac, but this is the adaptive card in here. I don't even know specifically how they found us, so it was just kind of cool. They possibly are on the call right now. I don't actually know, but it was just neat to find that there's this kind of organic growth happening. And this is a quote I got from their blog post. They announced this at their own conference called Cisco Live, and opened it up to a preview. And just this quote kind of touts the industry benefit of us really finding a standardized way to exchange cards and trying to get out of this proprietary world. I mean, the analogy that I use is back in the early 2000s, it just wasn't very fun building websites, and all the differences between, well, what was, Firefox, Internet Explorer at the time, and I don't even remember what browsers we were using back then, but it just wasn't very fun. Everyone had their own kind of flavor. And we're in that world in the card ecosystem. Everyone's got their own proprietary card format. This is just a great step towards validating that there is a need for a standardized card format that's open source, that anyone can use, including this product, which by all intents and purposes is a competitor to Microsoft Teams. But we're still, we see the benefit and the shared benefit for both of our products to evolve this world forward. So I thought that was really cool. You can check it out if you're interested at this URL, or I just search for Cisco WebEx Teams and adaptive cards. But I was really excited about that. So other stuff. Microsoft Ignite. I just found out it's sold out. You can add yourself to a wait list if you're. Well, I've got the. We're getting an unusually cloudy / sunny day, so I'm probably going to get the random like beams shooting into my eyes. But the Microsoft Ignite conference is November 4th to 8th. I think it's anywhere from like 20 to 30,000 people go. It's a huge conference, a mix of IT pros and developers. And I will have the opportunity to deliver an adaptive cards session. I don't have a schedule yet. If you're going and want to add it, it's BRK 3074. But mainly, if you are going, I'd love to meet with you, either one-on-one. We could just do a 30-minute meeting. I'm going to be there for like the 7 days that it is or something, so we can find a time. I'll happily schedule with you. And we're also looking at doing a focus group. Specifically just to learn how people are using adaptive cards, what things they'd like to see. So if you're at all interested in that and you're going to Ignite, please email me, matt.heidinger@gmail.com. And you know what I'm going to do is bring up the chat and type some of these things out, just so people have them. Wow, that's pasting very large. But if you're going to Ignite, please do reach out to me, and I hope to see some of you there. I will add, since this is a relatively organic conversation, if you want to unmute, you can. I know Dana's going to be monitoring the chat. If I miss something urgent or you have a clarification question and you feel comfortable with it, please just like unmute and kind of stop me. Especially now that I'm in full screen, I don't really have any visibility into the chat. But so hopefully I'll see some folks at Ignite and the rest of the team. Okay, next topic. So we have been using this product called Product Board, which offers a feature portal of sorts that is a very, what I would consider, user-friendly way of helping drive a product from the outside, from the customer's point of view, that being those of you on this call. So we have this feature portal. I've given it a short URL now. I'm going to have to exit full screen because I want to switch to this. Let's bring, oops, that's not what I wanted. It's going to be this one. So let's bring that over. So we have this feature portal, and it is just this. We've talked about it at a couple previous community calls, and I have been, so it's really only been talked about in community calls, and it has a pinned issue on our GitHub, which is good, decent advertising, but it has gotten significant traction, more than I think we ever would have guessed. I don't want to switch to it for just privacy reasons, but as an example, input validation already has 19 pieces of feedback. Dynamic search menu has 13. These are people recommending the feature and also providing their insights. It's incredibly easy to vote for these things. You just need an email address. You don't have to create an account or a password. You have to have an email address, and you have to click a link to that email to validate that it is your email address. But it's super painless. You can click on any feature, vote on it. You can tell us how important it is to you. Is it nice to have? Critical? And we will be able to use this really to figure out what would most benefit you. Our team, I think, throughout 2020 is really making a heavy pitch towards shifting to being very customer driven. We've got a product out there. It's being used in different ways that we never even saw coming. So we're really trying to come up with systems to analyze and have a better understanding of who our customers are and what they need. And this is your single biggest way of influencing where that goes. So with that said, there have been some updates here. And actually, yeah, we'll post those. Let me just do ak.ms/ac features. So that's how you can get there. That link should get you in there. And so I've basically updated it with different sections. So templating, you guys hear me talk about templating all the time. Most of these calls, it's our single biggest, large-scale improvement to how adaptive cards fundamentally work. From a service that can analyze your data and come up with the template for you, to some product that was demoed last month, a proof of concept by teamwork.com that was an integrated portal where you can save your templates and populate them with dynamic data. We just see a lot of opportunity once you've separated out the data from the layout in your card. So I've really added sections for templating, and particularly this is the one I want to draw attention to. So I've simply called it Take Templating Out of Preview. So right now, Adaptive Cards is in templating is in preview. We have a JavaScript library, and the .NET library will be out very soon. We're just trying to figure out the signing issue, and so we can publish it to NuGet. But we really want to know what's blocking people, if anything, from using templating, because it effectively is a new language of sorts. It is a syntax that will be baked into Adaptive Cards. We really want to hold ourselves to a high bar that we're getting it right. And so we're trying to lower the barrier to entry to using the preview, but I understand there are probably plenty of folks out there who, you know, their tolerance for using preview or beta software is low, and that's understandable, especially if it's a mission critical product. That said, we're trying to do anything we can to get a kind of two-way dialogue going on. How can we increase the confidence that we've gotten it right, so we don't have to take breaking changes in a language, while also, you know, giving you the tools you need to use it and validate it. So please take a look at templating if you haven't. It's been talked about a lot in the previous calls, and we have full documentation up on templating. So vote on these features. Tell us. You can just click on these and vote. The next section is designer and tooling. So a big piece in the designer, a big feature we're looking at delivering, we demoed it I think a couple months ago, is adding a version selector in the designer. So right now the designer is baked into 1.2. That means it shows all the features we added in 1.2, but we're still rolling 1.2 out to different products. For example, Microsoft Teams is still working on their 1.2 rollout. So you can design a card, looks great in designer, and then you go and use it, and you find out that there's a mismatch between the designer version and the host app version. So this is, I think, a big improvement to the designer. It's a lot of work, unfortunately. It's a lot more work than simply adding a drop-down. We have to basically recreate the environment as it existed at that point in time, going back to 1.0, which is, you know, a year and a half ago. So take a look at designer and tooling. Give us feedback there. The rest of these are mainly unchanged. So we've got a section on portability, just general portability improvements, responsive UI support. Form input gets a lot of comments. We get a lot of feedback, at least 1 to 3 per day on these topics. UI improvements, some section here. And then I added a section at the bottom for partner integration. So I know a handful of you on the call probably use Microsoft Flow. They announced support to send an adaptive card from Flow into Teams, but it doesn't yet have the ability to invoke actions. So you can't really round trip a card. So this is a feature about that. So Microsoft Flow action support in Teams. If you're interested in this, I know they're working on it, so your vote won't necessarily accelerate this. That one is very much in development, and we see there's a lot of excitement in closing that loop. But this is where you'll start to see stuff about partners. So please use the portal. I see a question over here real quick. Do we have a user voice? This is basically our user voice. We preferred this. We were considering user voice. We preferred this because when you submit feedback, it goes directly to the team. You don't have to send anything privately. So if you want to describe your use case in more detail than you'd feel comfortable publicly, this is a great forum. When you vote on this issue, we do have a required field that kind of tells us why do you want this or how would you use it, and give us as much or as little information as you want. Obviously, the more information you give us, the more confidence we'll have that we're delivering the right feature. But it's also a great way, once we do start working on a proposal for one of these features, we have a list of people with your email addresses that we can reach out to and get some early validation to really tighten the loop between, okay, it's done now, and then, we find out that maybe it wasn't exactly what you needed. So this is your one-stop shop for really driving the direction of adaptive cards. And like I said, we're already seeing 1 to 3 pieces of feedback per day on average. Thank you so much for who have already been submitting feedback, and we're going to do more, I'll talk about shortly, to really promote this page. And that's what this is about. So we're giving AdaptiveCards.io a refresh. Not really changing its functionality, but I do want to summarize, what the AdaptiveCards.io website does. It's a little different than I think most websites for open source products. A lot of them serve as marketing material, documentation, which is true for AdaptiveCards.io, but it also, the Schema Explorer and the samples browser, we like to consider interactive documentation. The fact that you can take this card, click it to the designer. The designer is obviously a key piece of tooling that our website affords that people use. And it's also a place where people can keep up to announcements. So it has a blog today. The blog, I can give myself critical feedback because I designed the blog. It's pretty not great. It only has one post. That's not great, and its appearance isn't that great. So, like Dana mentioned earlier, as I think maybe before the recording started, we've been writing blog posts on Office Dev, so that's where most of our blogging has gone, and we'll continue to support that blog as well for people focused in that area. But we also have a generic Adaptive Cards blog that's gotten a much needed refresh. It's got a bunch of content added to it, and it's a place to really keep up to date with announcements. So it serves a kind of wide array of things. And I also want to show, it is open source. It's a pretty neat website in just its technical stuff, and I'd be happy if people would be interested in a call on that. I don't know how technical we want to get on it, but without delaying anymore, let's kind of take a look. So here's AdaptiveCards.io today. It's fine. I mean, it's sort of fine. It really has a looping video, and then we kind of describe what Adaptive Cards was. This was the website as it existed when we were just coming up with Adaptive Cards, still trying to figure out what we were building, what problem we were solving. Very few links. Really no links to drive into content. There's no real good way to get to our roadmap, our latest releases, to leave feedback, to get to announcements. And it's just not necessarily that visually, aesthetically pleasing. So there's a handful of other gaps too that I'm very excited to close. So for example, maybe some of you have seen this. Maybe, I'm hoping that some of you will be like, wow, thank you for finally doing that. But for example, if you want to just grab this JSON, well, you have to kind of scroll all the way down and select it. We didn't have a copy button on here. We didn't really focus on the end-to-end usability on a lot of things. So with that, here is the new website. You can check it out at, let me just put in the new link, I think it's ak.ms/ac website refresh. Hopefully that's right. Someone please correct me if that's wrong. And you'll get here. And so it's got more white space. It's got a little bit about like, okay, here's a blurb. It's got to get started. We actually had a really cool video made a while back, a marketing-ish video that just kind of tries to tell Adaptive Cards, but we really never had anywhere to put it. So now at least, you really just want to get a quick overview at a conceptual level of what Adaptive Cards are about. We also have really quick links now to just, okay, what is it? What is it made for? How can I get started with that? If you want to get started with .NET, you can jump right into the docs. You don't have to navigate through a deep hierarchy of things, and just kind of quickly see what this is about. Where can I jump into which platform? My computer is running a little slow. There we go. So we also have two I think big things. So the latest releases, I think that's great. Now you can at least see what's the latest version of Schema, how can I get to it, and then roadmap. This, as you might expect, links to the feature portal. We're really hoping this will drive more traffic to the feature portal, help people understand this is the place to go, and also just a very user-friendly way. GitHub's great. We use GitHub for everything. And we use issues for everything. Once we're really building something, we go straight to GitHub. But it's just not as user-friendly. There's still plenty of people, developers included, that just don't have GitHub accounts. And so this is incredibly low barrier. It's just a very easy way to kind of see what we're working on. Then we get into, I won't go through a ton of this because mainly I'm very interested in your feedback. And it's still a work in progress. So these videos, I made all of these in PowerPoint. I even learned that you could export PowerPoint to videos. I had no idea that it could do that. So these are just like actual PowerPoint animations that I export to videos. So it is a work in progress. Your feedback, as you know, candid feedback is perfectly fine too. Really though, this is trying to help you get in, okay, what are adaptive cards? What do they help you do? Well, they help you meet your users where they are. You can inject content into different apps. So that's where we just say, hey, integrate to existing apps. Bot framework, you can click on these docs now to get directly to actual messages docs, et cetera, et cetera. And then a quote summarizing, you know, how this helped. And this was a cool quote when the support services team that Microsoft uses, they do a lot of surveys to figure out how they're doing. And when they changed to actual messages, their return rate on the survey went from 10 to 12% to 35%. That's a massive improvement just by putting that content, that card front and center in the app they're using, which was Outlook. And they can vote, you can complete the survey without ever leaving Outlook. That's pretty cool. Then the next section is, you know, opening your own apps to extensibility. So Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, Outlook. This is all about, you've got a platform, you want cards inside of your app. Well, to do that, you install the rendering libraries, and here's why you would care. You get native performance, it adapts to the surrounding UI, et cetera, et cetera. Designing cards in your own apps. This is, we now want to directly link, we really want to make it, I just like to say that adaptive cards blend into their surroundings, so does the designer. The whole point is that you can integrate this entire end-to-end workflow into your own apps. You're starting to see it with Teams App Studio integrating the designer. Cisco WebEx Teams integrated the designer. We've got AppBot was the first real person. They really drove that feedback. They integrate the design directly in their portal. So we really want to make it front and center that people understand that you don't have to send people to adaptivecards.io just to design cards. You can put it in your own app. And then the last part is just, you know, creating, sharing, and discovering reusable cards. And this is templating. So once you have a template, you've got that separation, you can now, you can share templates within your own org, within the internet. We demoed a REST service recently where we took some Graph Explorer data, we learned a template, the service analyzed your data, says, hey, I think I have a good way to visualize that. And really we want to make progress towards a world where you can just render any piece of data, display any piece of data without even necessarily knowing what it is, knowing that it'll look like your app, it'll blend into your app, it'll blend into surroundings, and it's a very just simple thing. So this is kind of getting people to play with templates, get started with templating, and I do note that it is in a preview tag. So that's the update on the homepage. We now have an officially sanctioned footer. Again, won't get into all these little tiny things. The big improvements, though, outside of this are, for example, we'll go to samples now. Here's the current samples page. It's, you know, a bunch of text. The new samples page, wow, very simple addition. There's a nice little copy button here. It now makes it very easy to just copy that JSON, start using it. That's in the Schema Explorer all around. The documentation, the Schema Explorer got quite a few improvements, mainly visually, but we cover a lot more now. So you can really learn a lot about the schema itself, just in a better way. So just minor visual improvements. The whole website got a massively improved mobile view. And I do want to call out this feedback button. So this, I think, is really cool. I just discovered that GitHub would let you do this. When you click on this feedback button, it pre-populates the template with the URL that you're currently at. So it's very nice, you know, feedback about a specific page, and as you can see. So, you know, you put your feedback here, here's the URL we're at. Now we kind of at least know what URL you're giving feedback on. And just like minor improvements there, again, just trying to help us and help you, help us, et cetera, et cetera. The last big thing, though, is the blog. So I took all of the content that I've written for Dana or the community calls, migrate them over to adaptivecards.io. So now you'll be able to subscribe at either place. This will be generic adaptivecards.io announcements. There's some cool stuff in here that we can do, though, that I think is pretty neat. So I think it's the June call. Let's check out June. So this was our June community call update. Here's what we talked about. We shipped version 1.2, and this is kind of neat. So we demoed all the cool things you can do in Adaptive Cards 1.2. We added toggle visibility, we added an action set, container bleed, lets you really make a more visually aesthetically pleasing card. And as you'll see, this isn't an image of an adaptive card. This is an actual adaptive card embedded in the blog post that you can play with, but it's kind of neat. So when we're writing blog posts, we can just embed an adaptive card that's useful for that post. So I think that shows a neat little integration between our products. So we have a blog. It's got the calls embedded, and it's got the ability to subscribe via RSS. So I still use RSS. I don't know if everyone is using RSS. If you do, let us know. Let us know how much you think the blog would be useful. That will certainly help me incentivize the team to create additional content. But we do have quite a few things now that we have a very easy blogging platform to kind of get started. So that's an update on the website. Please take it for a spin. Check it out. Give us any feedback. I will be sending the last thing for this call is effectively a very short survey which covers a little bit about you. I'm trying to learn about this audience in particular. It's a pretty short survey. I'm hoping it won't take you very long to fill out, but I would really love it if you were able to take it. There's general stuff about you, and then feedback about the website refresh as well. I wanted to call out one other thing. If you happen to be a dev on this call who likes to get their hands dirty, or you're just curious, the website, like everything we do, is completely open source. It exists. You can go to the pull request 3261, and I've got that linked here. So pull request 3261. If you feel like checking it out, it is a statically generated HTML site. So it's built off of other assets in our repository, which I think is pretty neat. So this schema explorer is completely generated at development time based on our schema file. So JSON schema is a way of authoring schema. So you can say, what are the properties of this element, whether they're required, what version we added it. And this entire page, 100% of it, is generated from that one file. So when we update our schema file, we just build the website and deploy it, and we get completely updated stuff. All these samples, these are pulled from our samples folder. So if you look at projects, adaptive cards, the root of our repository has samples, and these are a bunch of our samples that we've added, and some of them have scenarios. And so these scenario samples, agenda.json, simple fallback, flight details, you can see right here. So to add a sample to the website, all our developers have to do, all a community member has to do. If you have a great scenario sample that you think really showcases adaptive cards well, you just have to add a file to this folder and open a pull request. And if it gets approved and merged, it automatically shows up on the website, which I think is pretty neat. We just have very little duplication. There's just kind of things just built directly from our repository, and now we're just building this site all the time. So if you're at all curious, if you think, I like to talk about it. I think it's a neat use of statically generated HTML and reducing code duplication. If you'd be interested in that being a short topic for the community call, please let us know. Part of the survey is also really finding out what you'd like to learn. So that's the website. There's how it's built. And this is really going to be the final section here. We would really love your feedback. So here's a link to the survey. Let me paste that, AC Community Survey. So it's a relatively short survey. Again, it's got general information about you and this audience. It's specifically for the community call. And then it has 3 short questions on specific feedback about the website. So you don't have to fill out this section because it does have sort of a prerequisite that, play around with the website for 5 minutes or so. If you don't want to do that and just want to do the first part of the survey, that's great. It's pretty quick. It's who are you? How comfortable are you with adaptive cards? How satisfied are you with adaptive cards? And just like it should be pretty straightforward to just kind of submit that one. And then if you have specific feedback on the website, like I said, I'd really appreciate it. I know the team would really appreciate it. So yeah, please take the survey. And with that, I think I'll kind of take it over to Q&A. I see the chat has been lively. That's good to see. David, it looks like you've been answering stuff, so I don't know. David, by the way, so anyone feel free to unmute if we want to start talking about some of this. But yeah, any thoughts or feedback on it so far?
Hello,
hi.
Matt. Hey, hi. I think this is the first time that that I joined the conversation and with my live voice.
Oh, good. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yes, no, but I've joined other conversations, but then I didn't talk. Okay, so now indeed, at the moment, a discussion is ongoing about integration of an adaptive cards in the Power Platform, and with that we mean an integration in Power Apps or integration in model-driven apps. I already read that the team is already looking at the possibilities, but do you have maybe an indication or maybe an idea if that's a possibility in the future?
Yeah, I don't have any specific details, unfortunately, but I know that it's it comes up in this audience. It comes up on my Twitter feed, and I know we meet with the team. So Flow is the most tightly integrated partner from the Power Platform. I don't think we have any tangible stuff specifically outside of Flow, but this is where if you want to, let me go to this page. Actually, I didn't put my email. If you want to email me and kind of tell us like if you had specifics, like you're building a Power app, you think it could benefit from a card being shown here. If you're able to share with me any kind of scenario-specific stuff that you're looking for, it makes it a lot easier to drive those conversations. Particularly having a real live customer. I'll say, as a slight tangent, we're a very excited team, passionate team. We do a lot of stuff. I love these community calls because I get to share preview stuff. Let me fix the word October there. There's a lot of stuff that's cool and things we could do. But we're really trying to start to pare back some of it and focus on what would meaningfully improve the customer, improve your customer workflows, improve your business processes. So if you could kind of describe or outline that, I think it'd be a lot easier for us to say, okay, we think this is a cool idea, because I do think it is a cool idea, but it really helps ground it in something that's real and tangible and will measurably improve for a customer. So if you saw my email above and you feel like sharing anything, please do email me, and then I'll reach out to the Power folks and see if that's on their radar.
Yes, thanks.
Cool. Were there any, David? Were there things in here that I don't really want to scroll back and read and be silent, but. After this call, immediately afterwards, I will add Power Apps. So at the feature portal, there's that section at the bottom that's partner integrations. I'll add Power Apps in there, and actually that'll be a great feedback mechanism to really channel that and vote on it. If there are any others that you'd like to see, like partner integration stuff, go ahead and send them in the chat right now, or maybe I'll make a catch-all down at the bottom there where what partners would you like to see, and then just tell us there. That portal is really going to be our good two-way feedback portal for things you'd like us to keep an eye on or be aware of, or maybe invest in a little more. you possibly open your own site adaptive card rather than opening on browser? So the question was, can we open your own site adaptive card rather than opening in the browser? So that is effectively up to the host app. Every host app decides what happens when, and a host app is the app rendering the card. So that's Microsoft Teams, or that's Outlook, or the Windows Timeline, or Cortana. So each app gets to decide how URLs are opened. They could open, in their own app, like a little modal window, etc. But you'd have to kind of reach out to that host. If you had feedback for that host, we can try and relay it. But that's basically at the discretion of the host.
Yeah, just as a quick comment on that, and I posted in the chat, hosting HTML in Adaptive Card to some extent defeats the purpose of Adaptive Card in the first place, because the moment you have the ability to show random HTML within a card, why wouldn't you do the entire card as an HTML area? Plus, obviously, HTML being HTML, having that supported across the board would mean that any platform where we have an adaptive card renderer would have to support, having an HTML surface on top of which to open whatever URL. So in my opinion, not something that we're going to introduce anytime soon, but as Matt said, if a host wants to allow that, they can create a custom type of element or custom type of action and let that happen.
Right.
There is one question that I'd like to ask everybody who's ever used the designer, and you can answer now or later or never for that matter. In the designer, there's a button to go full screen. Is that useful or not? Because personally, I'd love to remove it.
Yeah, I do have, by the way, David, I don't know if you got a chance to check out the survey. There is an open-ended question on feedback on the designer. So I'll obviously be summarizing that. Hopefully we get feedback on that.
Hi, Matt. This is Om Prakash.
Hi.
Actually, since Adaptive Card 1.2 is shipped and 1.3 is planning stage, but we would like to know about the exact status of team channel support to the Adaptive Card. For example, web chat supports 1.2, the designer supports 1.2, but the team channel supports 1.0. But we are, it seems like it is still in backward. And there is no updates on 1.2 upgrades also. So may I know the right site when it will be updated, and I can follow up that one?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific date. Like I said, unfortunately, David and I have influence on Teams, but we don't, it's really, we can help and we can unblock people, but Teams is really, in charge of their own release cadence. That said, I will try and share a non-confrontational date. I would expect, I think we're all marching towards the Ignite conference. So November 4th is it's a rallying date for the company, as it's a great forum for us to release announcements. I would expect they are marching towards that date. Again, I can't commit to that. I can't say for sure, but I would really expect that at or before the Ignite conference is when they would have that done.
Okay.
And
So
if it helps, sorry, I'm Matt's counterpart here, but basically we're actually working on the dev side as we speak to get them, on the mobile side as well, upgraded to 1.2, and there's a couple of blockers that we're working through with them. So they're actually working on it.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question. Actually, from the forums recently, I came to know that the HTML tags, for example, NPSP, if you are using here, which is not supported there. But in emulator or some other channels like web chat, those issues are not there. So
yeah, that's a tricky one. So HTML entities are exactly that. They're HTML entities, And so because web chat is rendered in a browser, then the browser, it handles those HTML entities like and non-breaking space, et cetera. So really that's a side effect. It's not really baked into adaptive cards. Whereas when we render text, on say Android or iOS, they may or may not interpret those HTML entities. If you're seeing an issue specifically with that you'd like us to dive into or would like us to take a stab at solving it, please file a GitHub issue with some details there. But that said, it's not anything we've specifically announced support for. It just happens to work in web chat just because it's rendering inside of a browser. So it's not like we intentionally supported or not supported it. But if you have a need for HTML entities, maybe we can find out something that lets you achieve what you're trying to achieve without using those. Maybe some other UTF supported control characters or something. But yeah, if it's something that the scenario is important to you and you want to file a GitHub issue, we can try and look at it there.
Yeah, at least some markdown properties which is equal to NPSP, which will be helpful for us because
one might be able to do /r/n to get a new line.
But I need a space.
Okay.
I need to have some space
between the text. Character. I swear it was like alt 0164 or something. I feel like I used to do this. And whoops, I ruined my computer. There might be a control character that you can use that's a standard UTF-8 character that's a non-breaking space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see if there's a UTF character that does the same. I'm not a text person, but there might be a different way to do what you're doing.
Okay, I will try with that. Thanks, Ettinger.
Sure. So there were a question on Power BI. Wow, there are actually a handful of questions. Okay, so can we bring graphs inside cards from Power BI? I don't know if you can do anything with cards in Power BI. If you can, that'd be cool to know. I didn't know Power BI had adaptive card support. I think people have asked about it. Basically, though, if you don't see it on adaptivecards.io in the Schema Explorer, that's your best way of figuring out what adaptive cards support. So you go to adaptivecards.io, click on Schema Explorer. Those are the standard set of things that basically every host will support. It is extensible. It is an extensible schema. So Cortana Skills, for example, has the ability to do something like a people picker. And it's a non-standard element that only works in Cortana. That is our extensibility mechanism so that hosts can add additional things such as graphs that will only work in that platform. So it's possible that they've done that. I haven't seen any Power BI support. If graphs is something that graphs has come up. The problem with graphs is there's not a great standardized way, lightweight way of rendering graphs on every platform. Adaptive Cards is on everything from Flutter to React Native to native Android, native iOS. We really want to make sure a card renders anywhere, and it's really hard to achieve the level of visual fidelity that a graph requires. That said, if it's a really important feature to people, we can really try to spend the resources. If it's not low-hanging fruit, I guess I'll just put it that way. But it's very possible that an app like Power BI could extend it to support that. So Peyton asked about Skype for Business 2019. I think there's not going to be. This is a tricky one. All of our investment has been on Microsoft Teams, all new feature development. I haven't heard anything from them. They haven't reached out about adaptive card support. I don't know anything about that. Virtual Agent. Virtual Agent also, Thomas, I know you actually emailed me. I reached out to them. They said it's on their roadmap. But haven't given me a date. They are getting a lot of feedback on it. So a virtual agent is something that the Dynamics team came out with for handling customer service. Looks like a really great product. It I think uses adaptive cards behind the scenes, but your agent can't use them today. So they are working. It is on the roadmap to add adaptive card support to virtual agent, and I'm personally excited about that. I think as soon as that's ready, you know, we'll really broadcast that. I think that'll be a great improvement for a wide set of customers.
So hi Matt. I have another question about the hosts, about the partners. Have you ever considered doing like a web part for SharePoint, one of the SharePoint pages that you can embed adaptive card code and then fully support its functionalities?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. I imagine. I thought you were saying you could. I imagine you could do that. Because
I mean, you can like create your own web part in SPFX, but maybe you could as well foresee such a feature for the proposed for the SharePoint team. As a partner.
So if I may here,
sure.
So this is something that the SharePoint team has been looking into, and so far they have not decided to invest in it because they really need to reconcile whether or not it would, be a complementary technology to SPFX, or if it would be competing with it and creating potentially confusion with developers as to what to use. But this is something that they reevaluate periodically, and it might end up happening, as in adaptive cards being an official way to extend SharePoint pages.
And Thomas, can I ask, is it a blocker that you just would prefer it to be integrated because it's difficult? Like, so I guess what I'm wondering is that's a really neat way for the community to fill in that gap. And an example that I think came up recently is, so Microsoft Teams has tab pages. You can add a tab to your channel. That tab can be serve HTML, but Teams interns actually this year, and so you can render adaptive cards in it doing exactly what you just said. Because HTML, you install the adaptive cards JavaScript library or do backend, and they render cards. So AppBot happened to do that, but you have to do it yourself, like you're saying. You're installing the JavaScript library, and you're getting the card and you're rendering it. Teams interns over the summer, though, are adding a feature so that you can just point at adaptive cards and it'll basically do all that for you. So it does the same thing you could already do, but just in a more streamlined way. Web parts is a kind of similar thing. It's almost the exact same concept. If a community member, yourself or someone else, wanted to fill that gap, is it relatively easy to install a third-party web part? Like, is there a company policy you'd have to go around? Are there any blockers if the code was written? Is it pretty easy to use?
I believe that if there was such a web part, then for some companies, yes, that would be a problem and difficulty because of the company policies. But for customers I'm working with, that wouldn't be any problem to install, to deploy the third-party web part. But for me personally, that would be an issue. I mean, to write such a web part myself, since I'm not a developer.
Sure. Right.
And therefore, I asked about maybe a possible, look into the future if there is something such foreseen. But yes, you're right. It's fairly easy to create. I mean, I guess it's fairly easy to create such a web that is embedding SDK and then to use it in your tenant. Yep.
Yeah, I think we could try. I'll help you too if we want to kind of drum up support. I think it'd be a great topic for a community member to try and tackle, and we can kind of provide support. Like I said, so I guess per David's point, it is sort of on the roadmap, but if you really want it sooner, I think. That's probably our best bet.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? I really want to appreciate everyone for, this was a really cool dialogue discussion, probably one of the longer ones we've had. I really appreciate everyone engaging. Hopefully the survey isn't too intimidating. We get some feedback there. I'm just, I'd like to kind of just reiterate, Dana set these up. She asked me, I think last December. We've been doing these every month since January, and I get more and more excited about them every time. So we do appreciate you guys taking the time every month to come and talk to us. All right, let's call it. please reach out, please, especially if you're at Ignite. I won't repeat all the stuff I just said. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully you like what we've got coming up in the future, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. The blog post recording will all be up relatively soon. Any closing thoughts, Dana?
No, I think we're good. We'll look forward to seeing you next month on October 10th, same time.
All right.